When most people think of Japanese tanks from the Second World War, it's quite similar to the reaction to Italian tanks of that period. Small, underpowered tanks with weak armaments, incapable of competing against the vehicles fielded by other nations. In most cases, this would be true, but towards the end of the war, the Japanese began multiple projects in an attempt to combat the Allied armor. In future videos, we will discuss all of these projects, but for today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the story of the Type 5 Chiri.
Throughout history, there have been countless tanks, all designed to kill. But not all have been a success. What happened to the ones that never made it, and why did they fail? My name is Konavark. Join me as we journey through time, uncovering failed projects and forgotten creations in Cursed by Design.
This video has been sponsored by The Modern Frontiersmen. They are a group of independent filmmakers who create documentary-type content of both modern and historical locations. They explore dangerous and forgotten places and try to tell their stories along the way. So if you like urban exploration, history, or adventures, check them out on their YouTube channel using the link in the description. Make sure to let them know I sent you when you do. Now let's get into today's tank. The origin of the Chiri can be directly traced back to the tank known as the Type 1 Chihei. From there, designs would slowly improve, being shaped into bigger and heavier vehicles. The Type 2 Hoai and Chinu were direct upgrades to the tank using essentially the same hull but with improved armor and firepower. In 1943, work was begun on the next tank in the line, which was designated Type 4 Chito. This tank used a new chassis as the upgrades were beyond what the previous one could manage. Two prototypes of this vehicle would be completed before the end of the war, with them closely resembling the shape of the previous models, although significantly larger. We now finally reach the part of our story where the Type 5 enters the stage. You may find it confusing that the Japanese military would even pursue another medium tank design. However, having seen the reports of the tanks being fielded by the Russians and Germans, it does make some sense why they might be concerned that the Chito might not have what it takes for the battlefields of 1944 or 45. Development of the Chiri supposedly began in September of 1943, with there being originally two designs for the tank. The first one would be a simpler design intended to be ready within a year using already available technology. I couldn't find much more about this design, but from the drawings I saw, it appears to have been planned with the Chito turret in mind. The second design, which was the one to reach prototype stage, was far more complex. A total of 6 different potential suspension systems were drawn up for it, with 3 coming from the Technology Research Institution and 3 from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. To make a long and overly complicated story short, they ended up going with a coil spring system which was already proven from earlier designs. One interesting fact is that at least one of the suspension types would have produced a Chiri with interleaving road wheels like that of the German tanks. The entire chassis and hull design of the Chiri was very similar to that of the Chito, although it was lengthened. To compensate for this increased length, the tank was given 8 road wheels per side compared to the original 7 the Chito used. The frontal armor thickness of 75mm remained the same, but the other armor was increased to range from 25 to 50mm depending on the plate. This increased the tank's total weight from the original 30 tons of the Type 4 to around 37 tons. The power plant of this Sherman Hunter was initially planned to be a Mitsubishi diesel engine. In the end, setbacks with reaching the necessary power resulted in a gasoline-powered 800 horsepower aircraft engine from BMW being selected, which was being built under license by Kawasaki Heavy Industries. To equip this Japanese Panther against its foes, it was to be armed with the Type 5 75mm gun in the turret and a small 37mm secondary cannon mounted in the hull front. The exact use of the 37mm is somewhat debated, but was most likely added to be used against softer targets, keeping the main gun free to engage bigger threats. One source claims the tank would have eventually mounted an 88mm cannon, however this seems most likely to be some sort of error as I couldn't find any further mention of it outside of being mentioned as a potential choice for a gun in the World of Tanks Chiri, although even that never occurred. I'm just guessing, but it's entirely possible that the author mistook the Type 88 75mm anti-air gun, which the Type 4 cannon was derived from, causing them to mistake the size of the weaponry. There was, in fact, a larger 88mm AA gun the Japanese had, but this was never actually planned for the tank. The same source also makes mention of the tank originally being planned to use the Type 4 75mm I mentioned, and it's entirely possible this could have been the armament of the original Chi-Ri had it used the Chi-To turret, but I cannot confirm that to be the case. As I stated earlier in the video, the one completed prototype of the tank was the second design, which we know as the Chi-Ri 2. One of the most striking characteristics of this machine is its enormous turret, although the entire tank is massive all things considered. The turret size had a reason behind it though, as the Type 575mm was originally intended to use a belt-fed style autoloader. How exactly they planned to accomplish that is unclear, and unsurprisingly it was eventually abandoned, being replaced with a single-tray semi-autoloader. The massive turret would be driven by an electric motor, allowing the crew to acquire targets faster, and the tank was also given a turret basket, especially unusual for Japanese machines. There is even mention of the 75mm being given a gyro stabilizer, but again I cannot confirm that as I couldn't find any mention of it outside of one source. With the armament selected, the tank may have been subjected to trials in March of 1945. Whether that's true or not doesn't really matter, as the program was cancelled in May, with focus being shifted back to the more cost-effective Chi-To. Following the Japanese surrender, the partially completed prototype of the Chi-Ri was turned over to the Americans. The photos taken after this have likely led to more than a little confusion, as the tank was mistakenly classed as a heavy tank despite always being considered a medium by the creators. The vehicle was eventually shipped to the United States for trials at Aberdeen. It survived there for several years until eventually being scrapped. As if the entire Chi-Ri program wasn't already overly ambitious, there was even a plan to produce tank destroyer variants of the chassis. This tank, known as the Ho-Ri, would have been equipped with a 105mm gun and resembled the German Ferdinand in overall shape, while still retaining the 37mm hull-mounted cannon. The sloped front of the Ho-Ri, which has been made more popular from its addition to War Thunder, seems to not have originated from the actual drawings of the tank, but rather from the scale mock-up of it. For the second layout of the Ho-Ri, known unofficially as the Ho-Ri 2, it would have resembled the German Jagdtiger with a center-mounted casemate. The planned 105mm was tested prior to the end of the war, but neither design was ever built, making the Ho-Ri a completely paper tank. I found mention of a third design of the Ho-Ri which the scale mock-up may be based on. However, the entire article was listed as outdated by the author, and the updated version seems to have been deleted, leaving me no way to tell what I can trust from the post. As with most designs from that region, getting exact information on anything is quite tricky, so if I've made any mistakes or you think I missed something, let me know in the comments. As always, my sources will be linked down below if you want to do more research yourself. If you did enjoy this video, remember to give it a like and subscribe for more like it in the future. Don't forget to go check out The Modern Frontiersman using that link below, and I'll see you in the next one.